All right, thank you very much. First off, I'll say that it's an honor to be here with you guys, and I'm actually looking forward to a great session. Then I thank all the organizers, all the members of the team's textilers for this community because community is a very important aspect of our learning journey. Personally, I'm also a product of community. And community doesn't really take away the place of formal learning, right? But it just allows you to have a form of a support system, which is useful in every aspect, in all areas of our lives, majorly. Having a support system really helps, so you know that you're not alone on that journey. So I acknowledge every one of you on this call. This is a Saturday, you could be doing something else, but you've actually chosen to use it to further your learning. And I hope that at the end of this session, you would have learned one or two things about Dataverse and Microsoft Power Platform. Yeah. So I'm here to talk about local development Power Platform, and we're going to be focusing on Dataverse. And okay, so before we continue, um, my name is Kayode Ajayi. I'm a Microsoft certified trainer and a Power Platform developer, Azure AI engineer at Hashem Limited. And I'm a lover of AI, 3D animation, virtual reality, mixed reality, and game development. So that's just a little about me. And I'm just meeting you guys for the first time. I'm sure if I get to come again another time, I can get to know us much better. So, but for now, before we proceed, I just want to hear our view. What do we know about Dataverse? I need just two people. Hello.
Yeah, so Dataverse is hi, good morning. My name is Foyin. Dataverse
Okay.
is basically Microsoft's native database for CRM and also for the Power Platform.
Okay,
And
great,
then it
great.
has recently been extended to Power Apps also as a database for Power Apps that is used within Teams.
Okay, that's brilliant. Thank you very much. Huh? Then who else? I need one more person. All right. Let's not waste time on that. So going ahead, right. So, but first off, I would want to start with talking about cloud computing, because when we look at technologies, especially a lot of technologies that we're coming across today, they are actually backed by cloud computing. Cloud computing makes this possible. What do I mean? When you look at tools like Figma, and you compare it with a traditional tool like Photoshop. Now, Figma is a web service. There are a lot of web services coming up, and they're actually doing the job of softwares that we actually needed to install on our system some days ago, some years ago. What's really making this possible is cloud computing. Because with computing, it allows you to deliver computing services, things like servers, storage, databases, networking, software, analytics, and intelligence, delivering these services over the internet. So that's what we call cloud computing. And today we see it around us more than ever before. And the Power Platform, as it were, is a cloud computing solution. And even right now, we have tools like Microsoft Word sitting online. Personally, I use the online version of Microsoft Word all the time. I hardly use the desktop version. So, and all of this is made possible by cloud computing. So, when you look at a something like the Power Platform, when you look at Dataverse, it's a cloud computing solution. So, if you know Dataverse, the first thing I would just want you to know is that it is backed by cloud computing. Cloud computing makes it possible. So if somebody asks you what is cloud computing or what's cloud computing about, you should be able to say, yeah, delivering services over the internet. So then low-code development in itself is something that has been around for a while, but it's gaining more traction. And I believe the reason why it's gaining more traction and popularity now more than ever before is because of the quality of the tools that are being produced now. So before now, when you're hearing about low-code tools, you are going to be coming across a lot of compromise because the process of making a low code tools means you are abstracting some things from the business user, for example. So if I say I'm creating a low code programming language, that means in the background I'm doing some things that the user doesn't need to do. So before now, that led to a lot of compromise. A lot of low code tools were not versatile. They were not able to do much. Why? Because they were just trying to make life easier for a certain set of people. But in my opinion, now we are getting a whole lot of things about low code coming out. And I feel it's because of the quality of products that are now created and are even local tools. Because if you look at Power Platform, for example, Power Platform is a fully suited solution. Like there is really nothing you need as a developer, whether you're a core dev or you're a citizen dev, that you cannot make possible with the Power Platform. So a tool like Power Platform is really at the forefront of the low code movement that we see today, which is because of the quality of the product. So with local development in itself, you are able to create apps, processes, automation through a graphical user interface instead of traditional hard-coded programming. So when you look at a tool like Power Automate, for example, before now you would have had to go through levels of coding, right? You'll have to do a lot of those things for you to make that happen, for you to be able to automate processes. But now you can just do it using a GUI tool. If you look at something like Power BI, before now you would have had to go through learning Python, learning statistics, doing all of those analyses, and you have to do all of those things manually. But a local tool really allows you to do that just using an interface. And that doesn't mean you are losing much, because the Power Platform, which is what I'm most familiar with, is very flexible and extensible. So even if you're using Power BI, for example, and you want to still do some things with Python, you can. So it is a very extensible platform, and I'm glad that you all are part of the low code movement, because we are really in the era of less code and more power, right? That's what Power Platform preaches: less code, more power. And the name Power Platform really describes what it is. It empowers users, whether you're a business user or you're a developer. It empowers you to be able to do more with less. So going ahead, so just like an overview, I think it's more like a tradition. Before we actually go to the main thing, we have to just give respect to the whole Power Platform. So the Power Platform consists of tools that allows you to do business intelligence, app development, business intelligence like with Power BI, app development with Power Apps, as we're going to see very soon, app connectivity, software applications, that's with Power Automate, process automation, still Power Automate, bot development, and that's Power Virtual Agent. If I'm going too fast, I think you can just maybe signal or something. I don't want to spend too much time on the slides, really. So the components of the Power Platform, as I highlighted just now, we have Power BI, Power Apps, Power Automate, and Power Virtual Agents. Now, this picture we can see on the right is very descriptive because it shows the components of the Power Platform on top. Then it shows what they are sitting on, or they shows what is available below. So underneath, you can see data connectors, AI builder, common data service, and which is Dataverse. In case you don't know, it was renamed to Dataverse. That was last year, I think. Yeah, last year. So it was renamed to Dataverse. So, and this component of the Power Platform they use these services that are below. So data connectors allows you to connect to data from different sources, right? So with Power BI, Power Apps, Power Automate, Power Virtual Agent, you can connect to data from different sources using your data connectors. And good enough, you can actually create your custom connectors. So if you have your own API, you can still connect to that data. And that's what I was saying about extensibility. AI Builder allows you to build AI models. So you want to do something custom, things like image recognition, object detection. You can do that by leveraging the capabilities in AI Builder. And the Dataverse, which is like the data platform. Well, if I say data platform encompasses a whole lot of things. But in the context of our discussion, we can just say Dataverse is like the data service, right? Is the data service for is the data service that we can leverage with the Power Platform, and we'll still talk about what we gain by using Dataverse. All right, so Power Apps is a sort of apps, services, connectors that provides rapid application development to build custom apps for your business needs. So still on the topic of Power Apps, there are two kinds of Power Apps. You might be familiar with it now or not. We have the Canvas apps and we have the model-driven apps. And okay, Canvas apps allows you to design the full visual, and model-driven apps, it gives you less control over the look, but more control over your interactions with the data. So we'll see that very soon. I'm sure. I want to believe that we are kind of familiar with a lot of these things already. So I don't plan to go in depth because this might not be your first class. And if it's your first class, you're welcome. So what is Dataverse, which is where we are going today? Dataverse lets you securely store and manage data that is used by business applications without worrying about infrastructure. So before cloud computing, that was why I started from cloud computing, right? Before cloud computing, if you want to work with data, you would need to have a server. That was where we had jobs like server administrators and things like that. So you as a company, you are going to have a server that your networking guys are now going to kind of connect to your applications and all of those things. For some organizations, that's still applicable because of some things about security and data protection and all that. But for some users, you can leverage a service like Microsoft Dataverse, where your data is stored in the cloud. So it gives you less to worry about infrastructure, about maintaining your servers, making sure your servers are up and all of those things. Then Dataverse is an easy to use, easy to manage, compliant, secure, scalable, and globally available software as a service um, data service, right? So that's what Dataverse is. It's easy to use, as you're going to see. It's very, very easy to use. And when you're building model-driven apps, you see how fast you can begin to interact with this data using your apps. Then it's scalable in the sense that you can, for example, in January, you have 1,000 people. Maybe you are running an app that is like a shopping is a shopping app, right? In the month of January, you don't have as much orders as you have in the month of December. So scalability just means that in December, the system is still able to handle the higher influx of users than you had in January. So it's scalable, it's secure, and it's globally available. And you store your data within tables. So a table has a row and a column, right? So you store your data within tables. It was formerly called entities, but now called tables. So yeah, just what we said just now. Features is easy to manage, is easy to secure. You have access to your Dynamics 365 data, which is very good because Dataverse sits on the Dynamics, is the same database used by the Dynamics 365. So if you have that and you use it in your organization, you can still have access to your data. So things like your customers, profiles, your sales and all of those things, you have access to that data, and you can actually build custom apps based on those data. And Dataverse has rich metadata. What's the meaning of metadata? Metadata is just data about data. So, for example, when you have a column, columns have their own metadata. Things like who created the column, who made a change last to the column. So all of these things are actually useful when it comes to auditing. So you can actually choose to audit a column. What auditing really means is anytime an action is performed on that column, it is stored. It is stored somewhere. So in case there is a data breach or there is a need for an investigation, by checking the audit logs, you would be able to find out who did what at a particular time. So that's part of the usefulness of metadata. And metadata also describes things like the type of that column. Is it a string? Is it a number? Is it a lookup column? So that's metadata, and it has a very rich metadata. Then logic and validation. Now, one cool thing about Dataverse is, you know how sometimes in an organizations there are some you need validation, right? You need to ensure that something conforms to a particular format, or you have some processes that, okay, for example, a common example of this is, okay, if you are building like an expense report system or an expense management system, sort of, and you are requesting for a particular amount. So let's say there's an amount of $2,000, right? And so if you are requesting for more than $2,000, you need approval of a certain person. And if you are requesting for less, you don't need an approval. So that kind of logic, before now, you would have had to implement that within the app. So, but one thing about Dataverse is that kind of logic, because it is your business logic, so to speak, you can you can design that logic at the data layer, so such that any application that is using that data will must conform to that logic. So that helps in the form of security, in the form of compliance. So once you take time to define your data model, right? Once you take time to design your data model, you design how all your data flows with each other. Once you've taken time to do that, whatever logic, whatever validation you've added at that layer will trigger up. So anywhere that data is being used, it will conform to that logic and validation. Then when you're talking about data integration, okay, so now this is really about how does data get into your Dataverse, right? So for some use cases, rather than pulling data from other sources, well, you're still pulling data from other sources, but with Dataverse, you can make it look like the data is coming from Dataverse. So that's really where integrations with other system comes in. What do I mean by that? So, for example, you have a database somewhere else, right? And users are already submitting data to that database. Um, what you can do with Dataverse is you can, first off, you can schedule integration with that system such that you can say maybe every 4 a.m. as some organizations will do, like banks, for example, they do something like a refresh, right? So you can say every 4 a.m. go to this other database and pull in the recent entries. So you can do that. You can schedule integration with other systems, and those data will automatically appear in your Dataverse. Another way you can get data into Dataverse is you can transform and import data using Power Query. Now, Power Query is something that you might have seen if you're importing data into Excel or Power BI. And it is actually a very versatile tool. It allows you to transform your data. So data is never clean, right? There will always be one mistake, one error somewhere. So, but with Power Query, you can use it to have a consistent format of data coming into your system. So with that import process, you are going to do a form of a matching, and you will match things to maybe the table coming in has more columns than you have in your Dataverse. So in this process, you're going to transform and you're going to match it together before the data comes in. So you actually select the columns you need and you do away with the ones that you don't need. So you don't just occupy space for nothing. So you can do that also. And you can do a one-time import of data. So let's say, for example, in your application, you have some data that is just kind of constant, right? So you can just do a one-time import, whether it's from Excel or from any other source. You can just import the data and it stays in your Dataverse. And we also have virtual tables. Virtual tables is different from all that we've talked about, because that virtual tables is really what makes it gives you a form of a simulation, in the sense that it is a virtual table. If you just look at the name virtual table, we know in Dataverse we store our data in tables. So when you're saying virtual table, when you say something is virtual, it's not really real, right? So what that virtual table does is that your table, unlike the first option here where I say you are integrating with other systems, where you are scheduling integration, in the sense that at a scheduled time you are importing data. With virtual tables, the data stays on that system, but within your application you can access that data as if it is in Dataverse. So in these virtual tables, it really brings a lot, or it brings efficiency to the table, right? And it helps you solve the problem of redundancy, in the sense that you have data replicated. With virtual tables, you don't need to have that replication of data. The data can stay where it is, and using virtual tables, formerly called virtual entities, and using that, you can have it simulated as if the data is within your Dataverse. So that's really how those are ways you can integrate data with your Dataverse. So forgive me that we are doing a whole lot of slides. It's important because if we are to move further into things like model-driven apps, understanding how Dataverse works will really come in play. So because Dataverse on its own is a thing on its own, right? So it deserves its own time of focus. So, as I said earlier, when you're talking about Dataverse tables, you store data in rows. Pardon me, I wrote rows. So it should be in rows and columns, right? Then you can use standard tables, custom tables, or both. So now one thing the Microsoft team has done with Dataverse is they have already pre-created a number of um, a number of tables that are useful for, because it's a business application too, right? So across board in businesses, they've created a number of tables already that you can just leverage on. You don't have to start creating from scratch. So that's what they call standard tables. Things like accounts, things like customers, things like that. Well, those tables are actually aligned with Dynamics. We say that Dataverse is the same platform that Dynamics sits on. So that's why you see things like contacts, accounts. If you're not using Dynamics, those tables are not going to make sense to you, right? But if you're using Dynamics, they're going to make sense to you and they would be useful to you. So with that, you can have custom tables. So custom tables are the tables you create. And that's where it now says that you can use both in your applications. So let's say you're using the customer table, right? You guys use Dynamics, you're using the customer table, and you have a custom table. You can make your custom table interact with that standard table. So it helps you work faster. So you don't have to do everything from scratch. And the the Power Platform team, or should I say the Power Platform community, will always tell you that if there is a table that does what you need, you don't have to create another one. Just use it. You can add more columns to that table just so that it serves you better. But if there's a table that does that already, just use it. You don't necessarily have to create your own custom table for that. But there are business cases where you would need to create your custom table, and we are going to see how to do that before the ending of this session. All right, so I think I highlighted this already, the logic and validation. So you have a rich server-side logic and validation to ensure data quality and reduce repetitive code in each app that creates and uses data within a table. So this is server-side, right? And what do we mean by server-side? It means it's just handled on Dataverse itself. Then we have business rules, and which is kind of what I highlighted earlier to that case of, okay, once you are making an expense that is greater than $2,000, there are some certain people that needs to approve at that point. So you can use business rules to make that happen. And we'll see it. Dataverse is interesting. Is interesting because you can have
Hello, Kennedy. I can't hear you from my end. I'm not sure if any other person has the same experience.
Yeah, I think we lost him. Just hold on a bit. I'm trying it off.
Hello? Yeah, I just spoke to him, so he's going to reconnect back. Thank you.
Everyone is quiet. Hello, good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Yeah, please. I don't know, has the class started or is it break or?
We're on the class. The facilitator had day. We started since 10:05.
Oh, okay. But I
Yes.
can't see the screen. Is there anything displaying on the screen now?
And there's nothing displaying. So our instructor had a network glitch. So we're just waiting for him to come back.
All right. Thank you.
Apologies for the delay. He's had to restart his computer and all of that. That's why it's taking a while for him to come back.
Hello, everyone. Hello, guys.
Hello, we can.
We can hear you.
Okay, I'm very sorry about that. I was actually using a VPN and I think it tripped off in the middle of the meeting. Should have turned it off before then. So, back to what we're doing. So right now, because of time, let's just go over to make.powerapps.com. Can we see my screen?
Yes, please.
Okay. So so away from the slides, that slide what I was just trying to do was just to give an overview of the Dataverse in itself. So but when you have to work with Dataverse and you start with you come over to your make.powerapps.com and you come over here where it says data. So and you choose tables. Choices are like options. They actually translate to drop down in your application. So that's what choices are. It's still related, but we'll start with tables, right? And coming into your tables. So let me just let's come over here to new table. Okay, so now what I was saying about standard tables and custom tables, you can see tables like account, activity, all of those ones, they are there by default. Those ones are standard tables. Then when you now create your own table is a custom table. So right now we are just going to create a new table. All right. Okay. So first off, before you come over even to Dataverse, you have to think of your application and you have to find out what tables are needed in the application, right? So a table kind of represents the entities that are at play in the application. So for example, if you are talking of a school application now, maybe like a school management application, you'll be talking about things like well, you'll be talking about things like students, staff, but well, we can still say all of them are people, right? So that's a play. Then we'll be talking about courses. So that was going to be like a table. Probably you're going to have tables for classes. Then what you will now do is you will now relate all of those tables together. So, but for the sake of simplicity, we're just going to work with one table now, and we're just going to create something more of a form of like an asset management application. So just an application that the users can pick up to be able to impute asset information. So we are going to be talking about the location, the price, and things like that. So those are columns we're going to have in the table. But let's just create a table called assets. So here it's just talking about the name. All of this we can leave by default. And if you come over to more settings, there are other things you can add to the table here. But for the sake of simplicity, we just leave it all by default and create. So as you can see up here, it's provisioning the table in the background and it says we can continue making changes. All right. Okay. So now we can see this table has been created, table assets. So first thing I would want us to observe here is we can see these tabs, right? So we can see columns, relationships, business rules, views, forms, dashboards, charts, keys, data. Now these are different things you can use to these are different forms that you can design for these are different things you can design for interaction with your data. So columns, these are the columns present. So first off, let's just create more columns. We have assets here. Let's create price. Let's say the display name asset price. So now you would observe this CR 44B is just an internal identifier that Dataverse used to track the name of your column and your entity in general. If you create an environment, you will see where this comes from. Then, okay, so you have to choose the type. Asset price is of type currency. So I'm just going to come over here and choose currency. And okay, you're required, whether it's a required column or not, you can have that show up over there. Then a calculated column. Well, if you click on this, you actually see what these are. So they're actually useful when it comes to aggregating your data. So instead of you to do manual calculations, you can just do a form of aggregation with calculated columns over there. Then so there you can see you can either enable auditing or not. So that will show, that will decide whether it tracks changes on that particular column. So let's just add that. Let me see, let me add another column for location. So let me just say asset location. So we want to know where it is, probably a state or something. Then so that one, I think we can still go with a data type of text. Then we just leave all those other ones. Then we click on done. Then we can have condition, say assets condition options. Asset condition. So this one, we just want to know whether it is good, bad, or not. So for that, we can choose. You can see there are different types you can choose from. So we're just going to choose choice. And so here it asks us to choose a choice. Let's come over and create choice. So these are different choices that are in the system, but you can actually create your choice. So that was what I was saying over here, in the sense that they are related. So asset condition. So let's just call this asset condition options. So that's the choice. So what are the options? Is it that good? Let's say bad. Let's say right. So okay. So we can save that. So let's that's really how you create columns. Let's see other things we can do. Okay, so we have relationships. Now, relationships is where you interact with other tables, where you establish relationships. And if you click on this, so you can see there are many-to-one relationships, one-to-many relationships, many-to-many relationships. And so because of our time, I won't go into much details about what that necessarily means. But there are a lot of resources where you can learn about relationships, one-to-many, many-to-many, and many-to-one. So okay, so here it says that. So now business rules is important. I would want us to create a business rule so we can see how that works. So you can see now, even though I still want to kind of create like a model driven app from this, but I've not even gone into that part at all. Because with Dataverse, when you're working with Dataverse, when you're working with model driven apps, especially, you have to set your data up first. So in business rules, we'll see what business rules are. Now this is loading. So business rules, you can see, is it comes in a form of if then conditions. If this, so based on your table entities, if this happens, what should happen? So that's what business rules are. So I'll just create a quick one so that we can see how it comes to play in the application. So over here, um, coming over here, so we can see new condition. Let's just leave that as the name. So it now says source here. What's the source? The entity. Um, so that's the entity. That's the so which field are we working with? We are working with asset price. So in other words, we want to say when the asset price, that's at the point of filling the form, right? When the asset price is, let's say, is greater than, let's put in 2,000. So just kind of like the example. So you can see it's actually typing out some rules down here for us. So when it's greater than 2000, so that's the condition, right? So we just define the condition. So if you come over here to components, we have condition, which we can see here, and we have actions. Now, all of this, you can actually create complex conditions, right? So now this condition, we can now specify an action for this condition. So we can say um, if it's greater than 2000, okay, let's just show a recommendation. So these are different things we can do. We can show a recommendation, we can lock or unlock. So we can lock a particular field on the form. You can show an error message. So probably you're not supposed to ever go above 2000. So you can show a custom error message. You can set a field value. So maybe for that field or for another field, you can set that value when that condition is met. You can set a default value. You can set it as required. You can set the visibility. Uh, um, let me just show a recommendation here. So we'll just say show a recommendation. So here is now, once you click on this, you can now type in the details of your recommendation. So recommendation on what field? Let's still keep it on that price field, but you can give recommendation on other fields based on that. So all of these things are really depending on your use case. So what's the title of the recommendation? Well, great price. Let's just put a thousand, right? And what's the details? Ensure it is so we'll see where it comes into play in the application. Okay, so as you can see, you can see all of these are coming in right here. It's actually generating that code over there. So let's is there something wrong here? Hold on. Okay, not really sure why that's not coming in, but I wouldn't want to waste time on that. So coming into the views is where you define different views that are available in your application. If you are to add a new view, coming over here, so a view allows you to just select some particular columns in your data. So let's just say name and price. So while creating a model-driven app, you'll see where that comes. So here we can see, now this is where you create your views. So here we're just going to choose, okay, name is there by default, and let's just choose price. So let's just come over here and say price. So let's say for that particular view, these are just what we want to show. We just want, so in other words, with this, you can actually select different columns of your table to show to different people at different times. So for example, someone in the sales department or someone in the development unit, for example, it might not have anything to do with price. You might just want to see the name. So you can actually do that by creating custom views for your data. Then some data sets that can have several amounts of columns, you can actually do that selection from here. So coming back here, then over here, forms. So these are different forms that are there already. Let's come and customize this one. Okay. Okay. So back to this business rule here. So over here, I'm just going to choose the asset price. So one thing we can do is we can actually set, so in that recommendation, we can actually set a value if the person wants. So we can just say is a recommendation. Um, we can just say that, okay, if the person actually chooses that recommendation, he can, whatever we've configured in this step here is going to be applied. So let me save and validate again. Okay, so let me activate this business rule. So we'll see it in our application process. Yes, activate. Okay. So okay, so here we are in the form. Now this is general, so we can see that these are just the fields that are here, but we need to add more fields. So if we want users to be able to add data, we need to add the fields that are relevant to them. So we can add asset condition. So let's just drag that here. So you actually have control over the display. Coming over here, we can see layout options. Okay, because this is a quick view, we have only one column section here. But for the other forms, you can actually have two column sections and all of that. So coming back here, let me just add, okay, that's asset condition, asset price, and asset location. So let's just have those three. Let's just save and let's just publish. Okay, so we've edited that form already. If I just come over here, also let me edit this main form too. So working with Dataverse can seem daunting at first, but once it's actually it's very interesting and quite simple. So let me just drop that. Okay, that's all about it. Okay, I'm messing it up. So then dashboards, well, you have to create charts before you create dashboards. So when you're talking about charts, it allows you to be able to visualize your data and you can actually add those charts to your model driven app also. So let's just have a quick one here. So once you're in this place, you can actually select the entities that you're working with, the fields. So come in here. Let's say I just want to see the location per um, location versus okay, I guess location should be up here versus the name. So let's just have that and let's just save it. We'll see where it comes to play. Then okay, keys you can borderless. Then data is a place where you can actually view your data. Okay, so we've kind of set things up. Forms. Okay, I think we've worked with the forms already. So if you are to create a model driven app from this, now setting this up, you can actually access this your table. You can actually access it from from your applications, you can access it from anywhere basically because it's a table already in Dataverse. So if we are to just create an app from this, pardon me that I've eaten into our time. Then there is a column I would like to add. There's a column I would like to add, which is approval. So this approval, I'm going to make it of a type. So this approval, what we just want to do is I just want to show us something about business rule in the sense that you can either show some fields or not. Where is lookup? Yeah, so type lookup. Then we're going to look up the user table. So the user table is going to choose people in your organization. So by making that, we're just going to leave this here. Then coming over to views first. Am I in the right table? I don't think so. Assets. So type up. Quiet table. Please, I hope I've not lost anyone. Hello, guys. Okay. So coming over to view. Okay, so on the side, let me just come over to Power App. So if you want to make a model driven app, you come over here and you choose model driven. So I would really show us this modern app designer. It's quite new and I like the experience there more than the classic app designer. So we'll actually explore both of them. So, but let's start with the classic. Okay, so coming over here, you're going to start by choosing a name. Let me just say set management. So all of that we can leave by default and just click on done. Okay, so now this sitemap here is the navigation. So part of the reason why some people might find model-driven app difficult is the fact that it kind of starts with an error. You have to, if you try to, oh, okay. So you have to set up the navigation first. So over here, we have three things here. We have area, we have group, and we have sub area. Now, the sub area is really where you are going. The sub area is what shows the entity that comes up when you select that particular item. So if I come over here, I click on entity, and over here, I choose the entity we created, which is the assets. Just search. I think this is it. Assets. So now we've chosen the entity we're working with. Um, so um, so now this is, let me just say, okay, let me come over and let me say first. So coming over here, let me just change the name over here. Just change it to assets. Assets. So, assets. So let me save this and publish this, then close. Okay, so now we can see we've gotten rid of that error. So model-driven apps is really, so you can see the asset entity we chose. That's what we can see over here. Then the forms now over here, you can see main forms and quick view forms. You remember we edited these forms, though yeah, we edited both of them, I think. Then for the view, so these are different views that are there. Let me unselect all and let's just select name and price here, which is the one we customized. So so let's just select that for our views. Charts, okay, we created a chart, and which is this, the assets location by name. Then the dashboards, we didn't create a dashboard. Okay, so but you can also create a dashboard. Let me see if we can. I know we've eaten into our time so much. So dashboard is another thing on it. Let's save this and let's see what we have for now. So okay, let's validate. Let's publish. So that validating is just a way of checking if there are any errors in your setup. So if you have a business process flow, you can actually choose them from here. You can actually choose a business process flow from there. Then let me save, close. Okay. So if one is to go to the play mode, why do I keep clicking save and close? All right, then publish. So this is the new app designer I was talking about. So kind of the setup we already have, it is here already. We can play it in preview mode. Okay. So now this is what I want to show us. That navigation aspect is more spelled out in the new designer, which is this. You can see it's more spelled out here where we have navigation and you can see asset information, assets. But in the old designer, So if we come to the site map, you can see asset information, assets. So that's really how you set the navigation. So if you have other entities, so for example, in the form of that school management app, you won't just be interacting with your, it won't just be the entity, it won't just be the asset entity. You probably have much more entities here that you are interacting with. So, but if someone is to come into the app now, so this is the app in the play mode. If one is to come into the app, you can actually add a new entry. So we can see the name of that form, which is what we can see here. So because that's all we selected, that's the only option that we are getting here. So someone can actually come. So let's go over to our form. Now there's a form within setup. So coming over to forms. Okay, so now we can see this is the form we're actually viewing on the app right now. So we can actually set it up from here. So coming over here, we can add new fields. So let me just say price. Okay, so added that. Location, condition, approval. So now what we are going to do with this approval is we are going to show the approval only when the price is greater than 2000. So for us to have that happen by default, we are going to hide the approval. I'm planning to round up by 11:30 at most. So this approval here, we are going to hide the field and we'll show it. So that's where the business rules come into play. We'll show it only when it is above 2000. So we are going to see that. So we are just going to hide it here. So it's there, but it's hidden. So with our business rule, we can actually set the visibility. So if I come here, I can save and publish this. Okay. So let me see. I'll come over here. Let's close this out. Okay, let's play from here. Okay, so now we can, oh, we've not set the business rule. Sorry about that. So coming over here, let's add a business rule. And let's call it, okay, so let's just be quick about it. The condition, we're still going to choose that price entity. Entity, asset price, if it is greater than 2000. So we are going to choose an action and we'll say set visibility. So set visibility was the field, approval, visible, yes. So we are setting that to yes. Okay. Let's see what's going on here. The field should be asset price greater than. So that's the condition. You can read it from here. If asset price is greater than 2000, then show the field approval. So let's save, let's validate. And you have to note that you have to activate your business process flow before it begins working. So it's activated now. Let me come over here. So coming here, so now talking about the assets, new asset. So what's the asset name? It's a table. What's the price? Is let's say 4,000. Okay, so it hasn't picked up the new entry we gave, but you can see the recommendation thing. So this is the recommendation. Price is greater than 2000, ensure it's correct. So if you click on apply, so now this recommendation, it doesn't automatically set it. So actually it was this same asset price I wanted to choose, but I mistakenly chose this asset price. That's why we kind of have two asset prices here. So over here, if you click on apply, so you can see it sets that field to what we typed, and you can choose not to apply that because it's just a recommendation. Or if we use lock, it's going to lock that field. So we can lock it and set a particular value. So depending on what we want. Let me try and refresh again to see if it picks up our new business rule. Okay, not yet. Okay, let's just. So now if you notice, we can edit this field. We can't edit it because we didn't choose it when we created this form. This field is here because of that recommendation condition that was chosen. So that's still like a level of security. So there are some fields that you can show, but you can actually show the data, but you only have view access to. So you can configure those things also. So the location, say good. So we could also set business rules for when the condition is bad. Maybe something should happen. I think that's where business process flows now come in, or workflows in itself, so that once it's set to bad, you can actually trigger a workflow from that. So that's so, and we can see that the data will be in our table already. Okay, that's our view. Then the chart we created, you get to see your chart as new entries are coming in. You get to see your chart. So in no way is this a fully a feature solution, but it's just a way that you can customize your application starting from your data, setting up your business rules, your views, and all of that, setting them up from here and getting them to show up in your application. So I'm just going to stop there now. I hope we've been able to get something, and you can just quickly ask questions if you have any. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you so much, Coyote. So I don't know if any of the ladies has any questions to ask around some of the things that he has covered or something else that still talks to the Dataverse. Okay, I suppose we will all need to take time to try it ourselves, so that we can start to see if there are any areas. Okay, so someone's hand is raised up. Victoria,
great.
please go ahead.
Good morning, everyone.
Good
Thank
morning,
you
Victoria.
for the wonderful presentation. Okay, so I would like to ask, I always notice that most developers make use of model-driven app for Dataverse. Is that how it's being done? Or can we also make use of Canvas app and use Dataverse as our data source?
Yes, you can actually create a Canvas app and use Dataverse as your data source, and you don't really lose anything from it. A lot of your business rules will still be active, though there are some limitations in form of the business rules that can be activated with Canvas apps, right? But you have a fully featured database, and is much better than using SharePoint. So you can use model-driven apps for your Canvas apps also, just similar to the way you use SharePoint or any other data source.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Lavender.
Any other question?
Yeah, Lavender, you can go ahead.
Yes, I hope you can hear me. For the business rules, is it also only used in the model-driven apps?
Okay, let me see if I can pull up the documentation. So business rules work across model-driven apps and Canvas apps. Just some little, it's just like two functions that are not available in Canvas apps. Let me see. Um, business rules. I want to have the documentation. Let's see if this tells us what we need. So while using Canvas apps, you can also, the business rules will be active. So for example, it will come in forms of notifications. You know, we have notifications in Canvas apps. So you can, for example, if it needs to tell Canvas apps something, so maybe there's an error. Under business rules, one of the options is show error. So if there's an error, it's going to come up as a Canvas app notification. So we saw the way it came up in model-driven apps while filling the form, but in Canvas app, it's going to come as a notification. So, but I just want to pull up that documentation. Okay, so you can see business rules defined for a table applied to both Canvas apps and model-driven apps if the table is using a Canvas app. Not all business rule actions are available on Canvas apps at this time. Okay, so we can just know what the
All right,
differences
could you
are.
please copy the link and
Okay.
drop in the chat window so the ladies can reference
All right.
it? Thank you.
So that's the link there.
Thank you. Okay, so I don't see any other hands up. Means that we don't have any more questions. So I want to really thank you, Kaidi, for your time. And just so you know, you're our first male speaker across all of the
It's an
tracks.
honor.
So thank you so much for the detailed explanation. I know that 1 hour is really short to get into the depths of the CDS, but at least you have been able to show us end to end what is possible. And that's what's most important, so that we have a foundation that we can continue with. So thank you so much for your time. I don't know if Victoria is here or Amara. I believe this is our last class for this cohort, for this Power Apps cohort. Amara, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here. Good morning, everyone.
Okay, good morning.
Yeah, today is our last class.
All right, so this is our last class for the cohorts. I've uploaded all the videos to YouTube. I'll also get this one up. So please let's take time to look through everything. And if you have any questions, all of the facilitators are available on the channel to answer your questions. Okay, that said, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank you once again, Kaide. Your time is well
Thank you very
appreciated.
much. Thank you, everyone.
All right then.
You, Kaide.
Bye.